I'm going to be covering hair and fur creation in 3ds Max. Here's an example test render in rather low quality, so that we could take this now and create it and use it on polygon planes. Is that I have an alpha channel like this that looks pretty good, so that I can actually use alpha planes. I used an odd color, basically one of the prefabs that are inside of 3ds Max, and just realize that you have a lot of potential once you have one of these presets. I can just go into Photoshop here. I can start out by using a hue saturation adjustment layer, and I'll just change this to sort of this yellow color and try to change the color to either blonde or brown hair. So I start to get it. It's starting to come along here with just some adjustments to my hue saturation, and these values are going to change. So this is just using the sliders to see the color that you're looking for. I'm going to add another adjustment layer. It's going to deal with the levels. And just looking at the histogram here, I'm going to slide this over, the white coming over, and just tone it down. And this starts to look more blonder, with a lot of contrast, which is usually good when you're creating hair. So that looks alright. And then I'm just going to go back to hue saturation and adjust this and basically tune it until I get the color that I want. So, I mean, this here, it starts to look a little browner. I could definitely add some more settings here as far as curves. Trying to adjust the mid-tone. As well as the highlight, and really try to get the effect or the colors that I want. And I mean, this starts to glow a little bit. This starts to really have some depth. And I mean, messing around with the curves and really getting that effect of like a golden or a brown, it is just really powerful. And I mean, this is where it's just practice and understanding what you're capable of doing, rather than trying to fine-tune inside of 3ds Max to get the perfect hair color. Because this render here is not the highest quality, and this render took 17 minutes, and it's only a 640 by 480 render. So now jumping over to 3ds Max, what I want to do is start out by first just making sure that I go to unit setup here, and I want to just be on generic units. The purpose of this is just to keep our objects relatively small. I'll go to my top view here, go to keyboard entry, and I'm going to set my length at 2, my width at 1, and hit create. And then I'll hit Z to focus in on this. F4 so I can see my wireframe on shaded here. And what I want to do is just change the segments here, the subdivisions. Is that these subdivisions are going to help help identify where the fur is actually going to grow from. So we do need a number of vertices on our surface so that we can actually have hair or fur grow. I'll just change it to 2 by 1 right now, and I'll try to get the fur going on just this plane here. And this is relatively small, especially in relationship to the grid, and this is done on purpose. Next, what I want to do is just jump to my front or my side view here, so that I can see my side view, and I'm going to go to geometry, go to shapes. I'm going to click on the line tool, and we want to try to create some control curves. And this is going to be for the shape of our hair. And I'm just going to try to mix this up a little bit as far as different lengths of hair as my control curves. Then, once I have these curves or lines created, I'm just going to click on attach and then click on the other 2 curves so that they all become attached together. I'll jump to perspective so that I can now select this plane, go to my modifier list, and go down to the hair and fur modifier. Then I'll see my fur on my plane. To get this to be affected by the curves, what I need to do is click on the Tools tab here, and where it says Recomb from Splines, I'm going to click on Recomb from Splines, and then click on the splines themselves. When that happens, is that we'll see this wonderful mess. Right? And this wonderful mess is good. This is showing that it's trying to adhere to some of the curves themselves. Because I have different lengths, you can see that it sort of bows up like this, and it depends on the effect that you're looking for. I can use some of the settings here down under styling and try to customize this hairstyle a little more, depending on if I want it more straighter or try to relax it a little bit. So I can click on the Style Hair button, and I'll see some control curves. Alright, these orange setups here are allow me to actually edit a little bit. So right now I'm on just the styling hairbrush, and I'm just going to click and drag up and try to brush the hair a little bit. We have to be careful with this because what happens is sometimes it frizzes, and you really want to experiment with the hairbrush rather than just trying to make it work the first time. The hairbrush is really sensitive, and understanding how to control it and how to control the curves so that you get the hairstyle or the effect that you want. Alright, so we'll try that, and I'll just click on Finish Styling. And then I can scroll down here under my general parameters. These general parameters are relatively important for setting up the hair. Alright, this is going to be the density of the hair, this is going to be the refinement, whether it's jagged or not, and then hair passes deals with the opacity, alright, or thickness, appearance thickness when it renders. The rest of the settings, for the most part, are relatively standard. I mean, root thickness, so the appearance of the thickness of the roots, where in the Photoshop file we might have had some variation to the thickness. Then the material parameters are also important as far as color or coloring the hair. So typically, if we're trying to set up brown hair, we're going to set our root tips a little darker, and then we have our occluded ambient, and we want to typically lower this value, alright, so that we have the ability to get more shadows. These are the main areas of what we want to change initially, and we can do a test render, and this should be relatively painless. So this render took about 6 seconds to do, and we can see the fullness in the hair, and I mean how it's really puffing out in all directions. We start to have some highlights, and we also have an alpha channel from this. I might see some hair particles or hair strands down here. I mean, that's acceptable because we can just mask that out in Photoshop. It's really this detail here of being able to, or being not responsible for trying to manually paint all the fine hair strokes. So with this here,